Okay, class, the render, I rendered about 200 and something frames. Rendering all 300 frames took forever. So here's the folder where I rendered everything. For Nuke here, we just grab the folder and drag it inside the node graph. And then for footage here, I'm going to drag the footage folder in here. Okay, so any file that Nuke doesn't recognize at a given error, like an IFL. The IFL is an image file list. Okay, if you open that up in a text file, it's just the name of all the files in the sequence. So I'm going to press 1 on here and 2, select my render, press 2. Now you notice that I rendered in 1280 by 720. The footage is 1920 by 1080, so HD 1080. I'm going to reformat my footage to match this. Okay, so with my footage selected, I'm going to press tab, and then reformat. Okay, so type in reformat here, and if I double click on here, I can go output format, and either I can type it in with a new one, or here the preset is already here somewhere. If it exists somewhere in Nuke, it should list it here. Okay, 1280 by 720. Okay, so now if I press both of these, you'll see that this number is the same. The next is next thing is I'm going to select my render and hit tab and hit MER for merge, or you can just click on M for the hotkey and then connect it to your footage. Okay, now I'm going to press on number 3 here. If you could press any hotkey you want for 1 to 9. So if I press 1, I select my 3D, press 1, I select my footage, press 2, and I select my merge, press 3. Now if I go 1, 2, 3, I have hotkeys for each of these. Okay, you'll notice my viewer changes 1, 2, 3. Okay, cycles. Now I'm going to press play here. Now you notice when I press play, it slides here and nothing's moving. Okay, I'm going to change this to input. Okay, so input will be based off of this footage right here. That's at the top of your composite. Okay. Now if I play this, you'll notice that it slides again, and the reason for that is my footage begins at frame 50, but my render from 3D Max begins at frame 0. So what Nuke does is it attempts to place it together at frame 50. Okay, so what I need to do now is on my 3D render, I'm going to select it and hit tab. I'm going to retime it. So add a retime node. Okay, and with the retime node here, I can now click on this and say, hey, start at frame 50, like my footage. So now you will see it changes to 50 here if I select this. Okay, and now if I go back to my merge, you'll see that they aligned. Okay, and space bar over the viewer gives me full screen. Now you notice that I'll have some noise here, kind of matches here by luck, but the reason why we do have noise here is because I had to set the lower settings in Arnold with the lights at 3 instead of 4, but at 4 and 5 you start to get less noise. Now you see after this my render doesn't match my plate, but that's because I stopped after frame 200 something. Okay, so we only have this the first 100, 200 and something frames. Okay. Okay. So now one of the main reasons why we should bring it into Nuke is because we can color correct this. You'll notice, for instance, my shadows here, my darks, is a lot darker than what you'll find here. Okay, so and it's not only because of the shadows is closer to here, which should be darker, but it's also because of the overall tone. Okay, so I'm pressing spacebar again, and on this here we can put a color or a grade node here. So by selecting either here or here, I'm going to put it on here. I'm going to press G, and you see that I add a grade node here. Okay. Okay. Now for the G here, the G node or the grade node, I'm to adjust the black point and the white point, and the gamma is mainly what we're going to do for now. I mean, we can go into the details and address these. There's a lot to learn about this, but just for this basic assignment, if we adjust the black point, you'll see that my dark shadows will become darker. Okay, so that's not what we want. Probably go the opposite way here. So adjust it to be lighter. See, so you notice that it becomes lighter here. So right now we're just gonna eyeball it. Okay, and if we select the grade node and press D, you can deactivate it and see the difference. Okay, now it's affecting out here also, and that's not what we want, and it has to do with the alpha channel here. Okay, not being pure black, but a cheat, and not necessarily the proper way to do it, but a cheat is to add a pre-multiply node after this. So I'm going to add a tab here and pre-multiply node. Okay, okay, and when we do that, it should get rid of the areas out here. Now that's not the proper way to do it, but for this class we'll do it that way. Okay, and now I'm going to go back to my grade node here, and now you'll notice that if I adjust this, it's not affecting outside here. Okay, so I'm going to bring this up a little bit here. So you adjust it till you feel that your darks here, your black points, will fit more with your scene out here. Okay, so something like that should work. It's more in line here. And then my white point, I'm going to look at my whites here. Okay, here, and does it match? Now here it's not as accurate because I should have created geometry in 3D Max here to block the shadows here. So I'm going to look at here and compare it to my white points here. I think here my white points are a little bit lower compared to the whites that exist in the scene here. So a comparable gray type ground here versus here. So mine's a little bit darker, so I want to bring its light too. So we can go that way or that way. So I think here, if I bring it up here, we'll bring it closer to where I need it. Okay, I'm suffering on the ground here. This tile I think is a little bit too bright, so that should have been addressed with the texture. But the point is, we're adjusting our white areas with the whites in the scene to match here. Okay, so this is without the grade, and this is with. So this is a little bit bright here. So with our midtones, that's where we adjust our gamma, and so we can click on this wheel here. Okay, and we can adjust the midtone so it matches more with our background. So it's this wheel here, and it's a very subtle adjustment here. So for instance, I see a little bit of blue haze, green haze here, so it would probably be towards this direction, and if I push down out here, it's over, and then I go back here to make it just a little bit light. Okay, so just a little bit. Okay, alright, so something like this, and then I can go back to here to see if it's matching. Okay, and then I can delete here. So this is straight from 3D Max, and then you can see with the grade node here how we've made it match a little bit more. I think my blue is a little bit too strong. Okay, but that's the gist of it. And then once you're happy with your settings here, you could do a lot of other things too, like add motion blur to this, to your 3D here. So if we had tab, motion blur, use the first one here, okay, and it will start to calculate motion blur. This only works on Nuke X, okay, and if you play it, it will give you some motion blur here, okay. This might be a little bit slow, so we're not gonna get a lot of motion blur, so I'm just gonna delete that, but that's just a sample. Another one cool thing that Nuke can do is also add in like a light bleeding into here. Okay, so we can tab, light wrap, okay, and then for the B we can pipe it back into here. Okay, so that will give us a anything light or bright coming in here, it will hop back onto here. Okay, let's see here, intensity here. Okay, and you know, you want this to be a little bit subtle. It's not supposed to come in here, but more from out here. You know? So again, it's a really subtle effect, but that allows your light glare to go back onto your objects here, okay, for a better integration. Okay, and once you're happy with that, and you know, there's a lot more we can do here besides the grading. This is more of a subjective color correction, but you can also do basic color corrections. So if I press C, C is the hotkey for color correct. You can add in saturations if you feel you need more or less color, a little bit of contrast. Okay, so a little bit more basic here. So for me, I see grade as something that's objective, that you have to adjust because it has to match the background, and color correct for me is more about a subjective, you know, does it look good, should it be more saturated or not. Okay, that's a personal call. Okay, and once you're happy with that, we can press W here on your final one, W right node, and we can export out to QuickTime. So click on here, the file here, and I'm going to save it, okay, as my final render.mov. Okay, and my favorite format here is, we can either do ProRes or Photo JPEG. Okay, I like Photo JPEG. Click on MOV32 and click render. Okay, and it should render. Oh, I'm going to render only frame 200 because that's all I render to, or 250. Okay, and click OK. And that's it. We should get a quick time out of this. Okay, I'm done rendering, and here's my QuickTime. If I double click on it, here it is.